I can accept that. See, in the third film, I feel Vincent is, and he doesn't do it. Coppola doesn't do it as well, obviously, in any way, shape, or form, because the first two thrive on the father-son storyline.
Mm-hmm.
The comparisons, as you put it, of their roles,
their rises and their fall, and
Michael's fall.
Michael's fall.
Vito, yes, exactly. In this film, I feel, because Vito does not play a role in this film.
No.
Vito is gone.
Yeah.
We're in a new age. This is the rise of Vincent versus the continuation of Michael's story from where he was when he fell in the second one to where he's trying to rebuild himself. He's trying to rise again.
Yeah.
Only to end up in the end alone again in the courtyard of Tomasino's.
Yeah. Well, it's not only alone, but I mean, he's instead of the distance, the gulf that is between him and his wife and his children at the end of the second film, it is truly gone. It can never be, his daughter's death. I mean, that he puts a lot of store in her. It's really, I mean, he kind of has his ups and downs with his son, but I mean, his son isn't his successor. If any of his children are his successor, it is Mary, in the sense of her connection to Vincent, but also just of her personality. She's the one involved in the business, and the foundation. Naively so, but still, she's the one who has the greatest connection, or he tries to set that up. But
which, quickly on that topic of Mary, I would like to set straight the issue of. People always seem to rag on Sofia Coppola, and I don't think her performance is bad. I just feel like Mary's role in this film is not strong enough. It's
not suitable for the film.
It's not there.
I think I agree with that. I mean, it's like in Phantom Menace, people always criticize both Jar Jar Binks, rightly so, but also Jake Lloyd. I always wonder at that. I always think he's a kid, for crying out loud. He's doing well for being a child actor, which is always hard to find a decent one, I think, just because of the level of maturity. He's doing fine, and I think this was Sofia Coppola's first acting. I might be mistaken on that. Certainly, I think.
No, I believe it's her second, but to be fair, the first time she was, spitting up all over Al Pacino in the church.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, she is technically in all three films. She's the baby. She's the baby at the baptism first. She's an extra on a ship coming into New York Harbor in the second, and of course now she actually is.
Now she steps up. She's got a primary role finally.
Finally,
and unfortunately, I think people rip her apart because she's just the position they put her in for this film.
And they rag on her a lot, I think, because they see the opportunity. Because she's just in the film because they couldn't get anyone else, and her daddy's the director. And I don't think that's it. I think he legitimately saw her as a good character for Mary's role. And I
agree, because ultimately, Winona Ryder could not have done a better job, or she could not have changed the shape of the film.
The problem is with the character, not the actor who portrays the actor.
Exactly. Ryder could not have saved that character. She could not have saved that storyline.
Originally, they were trying to get Julia Roberts. Did you know that? Like in the first initial writings, that's who they were trying, but then Winona Ryder backed out at the very end, I think, because she wanted to focus on Edward Scissorhands. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Roberts wouldn't have worked though. I mean, Ryder may have, but the thing about the story, when you were talking about the comparisons again, you can't help but bring in the comparison with Vito and Michael in this film, which I think what hurts this film, in the fact that you can't help but compare it to the first two. And in doing that, it is definitely weaker. Because yes, you can't help but look at, with Mary's death, Michael's still alive at that point. He still has Kay, he still has Connie, he still has Anthony. And in the original film,
but his heart is dead.
Vito still has, and Sonny dies. Vito still has his other children. He still has his wife. He still has the family. Yeah. But in the end, he still dies with his playing happily with his grandson. He's watching his family grow. Michael is separated from his family, whereas Vito is not separated from his family. Vito goes into the hospital. You can't help the comparisons. Vito's in the hospital. The family is constantly around him, protecting him. Michael is alone.
Yeah. There is that interesting scene where he's by Don Tomasino. He's like, God, where did I go wrong? I tried my best. I've done everything I can. What failed me? What betrayed me? What? And Tomasino's like, God, where did I go wrong? I tried my best. I've done everything I can. What failed me? What betrayed me? What? And Tomasino's like, God, where did I go wrong? I tried my best. I've done everything I can. What how could I have done better? And and it's really the quandary. I think it's the I think of a verse in Ecclesiastes. It's not necessarily the swiftest runner in the race, or the strength to the strong, or wisdom to the wise. It's time and chance happens to everyone, and I think in that way it's in that way that the real tragedy comes in, is this life that Michael is leading affects everyone in different ways. Some die very peacefully, like his father. I think it's the rarity, but some do, and then others, like him, he dies peacefully as well, arguably, but in very different circumstances. But
see, and with the deaths, it brings up the question that I always love to discuss with this film: is Michael redeemed at the end of the film? Do you think he's redeemed in God's eyes? He asks for salvation.
He asks for a last chance.
He asks for a last chance, and he asks for it in the lives of his children. And right after that scene, he's still in the same room where he's made that request of God at the casket side of Tomasino. He will sin no more.
Yeah.
But he immediately turns around and gives an order. His last act as Godfather, he gives an order, and he does nod his head, thus allowing Vincent to do whatever he needs to do.
Yeah.
And in that one instance, that's where he loses Mary. But in the end, ultimately, I think he's redeemed. Unlike Vito. Whereas while Vito dies peacefully and arguably happier than Michael, which is where I think the tragedy comes in, Vito is not redeemed. Vito is ruthless. He is a villain. He's just a likable... You can't help but side for him because he's obviously the character we're following.
Yeah.
But in this case, Michael is the tragic figure who tries...
The unwilling
and,
son.
in my opinion, does redeem himself, but at what cost?
Yeah, I actually thought of the same thing when I was rewatching the scene. But I mean, the events that he has to follow, it's kind of always Michael's story. He's kind of always an unwilling ship in a very strong gale, I think. And in a way, like he's saying to Kay, well, I didn't want to be like my father, but hey, he was in danger. What could I do? And then my family was in danger. What could I do? I mean, he might have been able to just like pull out, but realistically, it's tough to say. And at that point, when he's in that room and turns to Vincent, I think he does what he thinks is best, is he hands over the reins of power to someone else who wants it, rather than him, who really has never wanted it in a way, or he's only wanted it as an excuse for being able to protect someone. But
and it's true, Vincent will succeed in that role much like Vito.
Yeah.
Whereas Michael, it's not Michael's place. It was never supposed to be.
No, it was supposed to be Sonny.
Exactly.
But he died, and Michael didn't have a choice.
Michael was supposed to be the Tony.
Yeah.
Of the family.
Yeah. Which is funny in a way.
Yes. And he tries to keep Tony in, but of course, Tony is much stronger. And I guess you could, in a way, argue Tony in that instance might be tougher or stronger than his father. Even though I think the character
Tony had more opportunity than Michael had, I think. Well, for one, think of it this way: if Vincent had died, if Vincent had been killed, and then Tony is in the situation where he has, his father's in the hospital, and he has to protect his dad, and of course he would choose to, and then we'd be in the same boat as it is. So I think it's more circumstance and opportunity than anything. But
yeah, I'm not sure that's necessarily true.
This has been a VS1 production.